folks, you're welcome to come over here, wherever you feel most comfortable. We're going to begin. Hatzur Tamim. Adonai natanu, Adonai lakach, Yishem Adonai v'varach, v'hu rachum yichaper avon v'lo yashchit, v'hirba l'ashiva po, v'lo ya'ir kochamato. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. We're going to start the service. We're gathered here today to pay our tribute of affection and respect to our friend, our loved one, Bryan Leslie Natch, whose name in Hebrew was Baruch ben Mordechai v'Riva Rezo. And we reach out with caring and sympathy to his family, to his nephews, Stephen and David, to his aunt who is in Toronto, Bess Plosker, and to his dear friends, Sharon Zeinelberg and family, Michelle Maddock, Alicia Box, Martin Rosenby, David Johnson, and Stephanie Roseman. I wanted to just begin by chanting from Psalm 23 and ask you just to be with your thoughts about Bryan as I chant this in Hebrew and then offer translation in English. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai ro'i la'echsar, bino deshe yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot, yinaleni nafshi yeshovev, yanacheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo, gama ki yelech begeitz al mavet, lo yirara ki ata imadi, shiftecha umishantecha, Hima yenachamuhuni, taroch lefanai shulchan neged torerai, dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi revaya, ach tov v'chesed yirdafuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. Psalm of David. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want, giving me repose in green meadows, leading me beside the still waters to revive my spirit. Guiding me on the right path, for that is God's essence. Though I walk through a valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod comfort me. You prepare a banquet for me in the presence of my foes. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and kindness shall be my portion all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever. Part of the process of conducting a Jewish funeral is such that we listen to words of praise for our loved one who has passed. And so I wanted to call on Bryan's nephews, Stephen and David, to offer some insights. And then I'm going to ask Alicia if she's up to it. And if she's not, she'll just pass. But for now, if Stephen and David, if you could come forward. Do you want the mic? There you go. You don't have to. Even better.
I would just like to say thank you to everybody for being here. I'd like to thank Alicia for taking such care of Bryan. I'd like to thank Sharon. And I'd like to thank Bryan. I'd like to thank Bryan for being there when I needed him, when I was younger. I'd like to thank Bryan for all the support and the advice that he gave me when I was growing up. I'd like to thank Bryan for my love of football. And I will miss him and remember him fondly forever.
Hello, I would like to thank everyone for coming out. I especially want to thank Alicia and Sharon. I know it wasn't easy the last little while, but they made his days full, and they made them as joyous as they could. And I would like to say, Bryan, you were a very wonderful uncle. He took me to my first bar when I was 14. And one night when I was working, one day when I was working for him, my Baba called and said, I want to speak to Bryan, and it was his poker night. So I called his friend's house, and his friend yelled really loud, Bryan, your nephew's on the phone, your mother wants to speak to you. So the next day I came into the office and barricaded myself in my Zeta's office, figuring he'd kick my butt. Turns out he didn't, but that was Bryan. His bark was worse than his bite. But I loved him very much, and I'm going to miss him a lot. He was always there for me, and he was always the one person that was on my side. So all I could say now is thank you, everybody, and I hope he's truly he's truly at rest. I love you, Bryan.
I hate microphones. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name's Alicia. I just wrote it down because I just wrote this last night quickly, and I just wanted to say thank you all for coming. And knowing Bryan well, he would honestly like me to keep this short and sweet. I've known him for many years, and boy, what a character he was. Being his caregiver and companion the past few years, I could say that we all knew he had a unique and vibrant personality, never being afraid to speak his mind, ever. Bryan was known for having a love of baseball, being an avid sports fan, collecting all sorts of trinkets, always talking about his VCR collection, 500 elephants. He always took pride in his love to share stories about things and dogs and all the rich foods, people in his life. Often he would try. Over time, we shared many laughs together, and I've heard all about his traveling experiences around the world. He enjoyed watching his favorite. I don't know. You know what? I just know Bryan was a character, and I miss him. I've been around in his life a long time, and today, as we put your body down to rest, you're at peace with your loved ones and family and that have deceased. Mr. Natch, you won't be missed. You'll be thought about. Rest well on your journey, my friend, and thank you for always being you. Unique and vibrant personality. We'll miss you, Bryan.
So thank you all for offering your words about Bryan. And I'm sure there's more to say, and hopefully at some point you'll get to do so. But I learned about Bryan from Sharon, and I know that they go way back. Sharon, you started working with Bryan about 30 years ago? 40 years, maybe even longer than that. I know that you loved each other, and he was like a brother, which means that there was space to be loving and happy and angry and all the other emotions that go with being in part of someone's life. But one of the things that stood out for me what you shared with me, Sharon, is that when you were diagnosed with cancer 15 years ago, it was Bryan who took you and accompanied you to Toronto where you had your treatment. Is that correct?
He didn't accompany me.
But he made sure that you were there, right? Yeah. So thank you for clarifying that. Some of you know that after graduating high school in Minneapolis, Bryan returned to Winnipeg, and for a while I believe he ran a laundromat. And his father started a business with his business partner. They started Winnipeg Construction and then acquired Wyatt Rentals. Eventually, Bryan took over, and in the last part of the business, he was managing Chateau West. Bryan, as you heard, was involved in softball leagues, participated in bowling. He enjoyed playing hearts and taking people's money. And had friends over every Monday night and really had a wonderful time. He kept in touch with some friends from high school in Minneapolis, and then he went on to receive a degree in psychology at the University of Minnesota. Bryan also fought cancer. He also lived with dementia for the last 10 years of his life. And I know that everyone who loved him is grateful for the care and attention he received from Alicia and, of course, from Sharon. As Sharon shared with me, Bryan was generous to a fault. There are stories about him paying somebody's visa bill, a young woman. Another time where he bought a couple who couldn't afford a car. He purchased that for them. Bryan was multidimensional like all of us. And I'm sure he had his faults, but we're here to talk about the things that were really positive about him. He loved his dog, Baby. Love is maybe an understatement. He also, as you heard from Alicia, he was enamored by elephants. And so this is where I wanted to just offer a little Torah, a little insight from our Jewish tradition. Our Talmudic sages had strong opinions about elephants. We know that elephants are really smart, they're really large, and really strange. I don't know if that describes Bryan, but I wasn't suggesting that. What I was going to the Hebrew word for elephant is peel. And the rabbis came up with this fascinating teaching. They said, and you have to pay attention, if you see a peel, if you see an elephant in your dream, then pilaot, wonders, miracles will happen, will manifest in your life. And we all know how incredible elephants are. They speak a language we can't physically hear. And I wanted to just offer this idea. Perhaps Bryan saw something in these animals. He saw something about them that reflected his own soul, his own neshama. These large figures who are amazingly social, gentle, and loyal, open to friendship across species. Maybe he couldn't always be that to others or to himself, but he had a desire, he aspired, and there were people who definitely benefited from Bryan's elephant qualities, the ones of being social, about being compassionate and caring for each other. We thank God for all the blessings which you, Adonai, have bestowed upon us in the form of Baruch ben Mordechai v'Riva Rezel. Tehei nafsho tzura b'tzura chaim. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life eternal. So at this time, we're going to conduct what's known as a Hasid Chalamet, the purest form of kindness that we can bestow upon our loved one. And if you'll give me a moment here to get my gloves sorted. I just want to warn everybody, it's really slippery. We take the shovel and then we hold it in this upside down in this unusual manner. You all hear me still? Yeah. And we do so, this is my theory, as a way to let God know we're disappointed with God's decision. So did Bryan ever tell you when he was disappointed with you? Oh yeah. So you can do the same with God. Let me suggest you do it once this way, and then twice in this manner. And we're going to do so because of COVID, and we're being extra cautious. So people can do this. Multiple people can do it at the same time. You just want to make sure you're at appropriate distance. And we're going to do the best we can to get as much herb on top of it as we can. And then there's still more to the service, so if you'll just remain patient, that would be great.
The first one is on the side?
Yeah, first one's on the side, yeah. I thought that was Bruce. Of course, yeah. So maybe once Alicia's done, we'll stop. And we're gonna close with the chanting of the Amale Rachamim, the memorial prayer, and that'll be followed by the Mourner's Kaddish. El Malei Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Amtsei milcha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina b'ma'alot kedoshim utorim k'zohar akiyam azhirim et nishmat Baruch ben Mordechai v'Rivo Rezel shalach leolamo began Eden tehei menuchato Ana balarachamim hastirehu b'setek nafecha leolamim utzror b'tzror chaim et nishmato Adonai hu nachlato v'tanuach b'shalom hamishkavo v'nomar Amen. Before we recite the Mourner's Kaddish, I just wanted to say that I didn't have a chance to know Bryan, and I do know what Sharon shared with me. And in terms of dementia, in terms of cancer, these are things that affected his life. And if you know about anything about dementia, it's such a horrible thing to happen to a human being. And there are ways for us as a society to figure out how to not only deal with it, but to research it and hopefully, God willing, prevent it. So if you find it in your hearts to dedicate some kind of tzedakah, some kind of charity in Bryan's memory, think about, I know that Bryan actually supported many different charities. And so these are just two of them that you could think about. But please do something in his memory. Let's recite together the Mourner's Kaddish. Yikadal v'yikadash Shemei Rabah Be'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon uvyamechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael Ba'agala uv'izman kari v'yimaru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabah mevorach leolam ulmei amaya Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudasha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'yimaru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba min Shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimaru Amen. Oseh Shalom b'mramav hu yaseh Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimaru Amen. I want to say to all of you these closing words and offer this verse of consolation. First in the Hebrew, Hamakom yinachem etchem b'toch shar avlei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May God continue to grant you comfort amongst all the mourners of Zion, Jerusalem, and throughout the entire world. May Bryan's memory continue to be a blessing, and may you be there for each other and lift each other up in this moment of pain and sorrow that each of you, I'm sure, is in at this time. Thank you. And Sharon, on behalf of everyone here, let me just thank you for your dedication to Bryan and to his well-being. Thank you.